Hey guys, welcome back. So in today's video, I want to talk about a weapon that I think is really underused. It's a weapon that is brushed to the side and kind of forgotten, honestly. Besides being overused by new players on 2-4, well, I guess the utility should be used more and could be used more in casual gameplay. I personally think the Bonk Atomic Punch should be used more in Scout, and I believe there's a way to use it so it's more effective. But why don't we go ahead and talk about the Bonk, and just like every other video, let's get into its stats to really understand it. So the Bonk Atomic Punch is the utility in the secondary slot for Scout, replacing his reliable pistol. It looks like a soda can and honestly fits the Scout's personality pretty well. Upon use, the Bonk changes the player's camera to third person and you become invulnerable for 8 seconds. Meaning, Scout cannot take any damage dealt to him for the 8 seconds while he's under the drink's influence. However, there are a few drawbacks or catches, if you will, to this seemingly amazing drink. The drawbacks are, he cannot capture a control point or any objective, pick up the intelligence while using Bonk, or in a different scenario, he cannot pick up the intelligence and then drink Bonk. He cannot push a payload cart either, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think he cannot carry the ball in pastime while using Bonk, but I'm not too sure. The other drawback to his invincibility is that while under the duration of the effect, he cannot take any damage, which is awesome, but all that damage is converted to a speed decrease once it wears off. The slowdown effects as follows. He can be slowed down from 25% of his base speed to 50% once he has taken at least 200 damage. The babyface doesn't stack with this effect. Almost forgot another crucial part to the Bonk. Scout cannot attack while invincible. He can do no other actions besides running, jumping, and all other movement, and also reloading. Also, it acts as a taunt, so he can't drink it underwater. A few more technical aspects of the utility in terms of numbers is that it takes 1.2 seconds to consume it, meaning you're still vulnerable for this time. The duration is 8 seconds and the recharge time is 22 seconds. So it's a pretty nifty utility that Scout already has. I mean, he already feels invulnerable on his own based on how maneuverable he is and how he can essentially dodge bullets. Scout on his own is pretty good at deviating damage, especially if he's being played by someone who's pretty good at the game, but adding something that allows him to take no damage could be used for some serious plays. So I mentioned the pros and the cons of the Bonk, however I want to now talk about the Scout as a class. Scout is a really well-rounded class capable of defense and holding middle ground, yet I personally think he is hindered in game modes such as Payload. Let me explain why. So as we know, Scout is a light class capable of great movement all around maps, yet I personally and evidently believe Scout is essentially useless when trying to push anywhere on Payload. If he is faced with half a decent team, he won't be able to get past defenders such as NGs with sentries and of course the enemy team coming out of spawn consistently. In other words, pushing up is way too difficult when the team has a solid defense spot. You could be writing an angry comment right now about how I'm completely wrong, but I really think you should hold off. Scout doesn't thrive on pushing carts. He really doesn't. I'm not saying that he's bad at playing offensively, it really matters about the game mode. Control points allows him to be played to the fullest, but when it comes to payload and attack and defense, which they both share the same reason, when he's on blue at least, he's the best at holding the ground where the cart is and defending the area around it. The reason why this is the case is because when pushing the cart, he's stuck to one spot, the cart, duh. And the reason why that's so bad is because he relies on his movement. And when he's crouched behind the cart or wherever pushing it, he's just a magnet for bullets and rockets and everything in between. Same thing when he's on attack and defense, especially on Dust Bowl. You'll hardly ever see a Scout pushing without his team. He'll die almost immediately to sentries. Now, I am mostly focused on Scout actually getting behind enemy lines and not getting gunned down by sentries. I know it's a little later into the video, but I should mention the Bonk will never be the best utility for Scouts. It's just been abused too much. But I'm trying to give y'all some scenarios which could potentially thrive. So without the Bonk, in terms of sentries, Scout would have to avoid the sentry the best he can. But most of the time, if the engineers are smart, they'll be able to hold their ground, preventing any class from moving up. So Scout's only option is to hide from the sentries and avoid moving up. Let's take the first capture point on Upward. It's kind of small, and doesn't allow for much movement unless you're solar light. So Scout would have to patrol his area outside of spawn and punish those that push forward and prevent blue from pushing the cart any further. And to answer that question, I brought in a special guest to today's video. Maxon, how would a Bonk Scout who's skilled at the game avoid these sentries?
Scout could avoid this by using the Bonk. Even though the Bonk isn't the best for utility, it does allow Scout to gain additional ground that he normally couldn't cover. For example, if he uses the Bonk for the 8 seconds of invulnerability just before he's in sentry range, then he could move past the giant wood wall right after the first point. And by doing such, he can now hold his ground and keep the enemy team from making it to the front lines, which leaves blue free to push the cart.
Thank you, Maxon. Everyone go subscribe to him. He posts amazing TF2 content that you will not regret watching. Just like he said, Scout can avoid sentries and all incoming damage to then hold solid ground and defend it, which on Payload is his strong suit. And the great thing is that this doesn't just work on one map. It also works on every Payload map, since they're so intricately designed to have sub-pathways that are in cover. Scout is able to get to them and be safe if he does have the Bonk Atomic Punch. Not only can he use the bonk for getting past sentries, he could also use it as an escape plan. No, not that one. He can use it if he's burning to death, while under the effects of bonk, he won't receive any damage after the bonk wears off. He better be by the resupply locker, or he might burn to death. Another small but effective plus the bonk gives you is making the team reposition. The enemy team is on the biggest seafood diet, meaning if they see food, they go for it. Anyone with half a monkey brain will want to chase a bonk scout to get that kill. While that happens, you could organize your team to make a push. Making a team reposition always will work in your favor. Most of the time. And while using the bonk to quote-unquote distract key targets does sound gimmicky, yet it can most definitely be effective. But can he be just as effective if the scout doesn't have the bonk and actually shoots his key target? No, most definitely not. But that's not the point. The bonk gives the opportunity for your team to gain an advantage by changing the tides of the game. The bonk could not be more of a team player than it already is. Obviously, the bonk still isn't perfect by far. It still has its many issues, but I do truly believe that the developers knew what they were doing. Scout is fragile, especially against sentries, and I believe if you want to help your team and secure ground, if there's a sentry in the way, I'm sure he could do some work. If I worked at Valve and I was able to make improvements to the bonk, I would suggest Scout doesn't receive any speed penalty for the amount of damage taken. Also, I would implement a no knockback stat to it, meaning he doesn't get affected by bullets, air blasts, explosives, all of that. Comment crazy, but I think that would make it a lot better and could be a lot more fun to play. Let me know in the comments what you guys think would be the best way to fix the bonk to make it more usable. And hey, maybe one day Valve will listen. Anyway, I think that's just about it. I want to thank you guys so much for watching the video, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to them as fast as I can. Again, I want to thank Maxon for the help on this one as well. His channel link will be in the description. Go check him out. His content is amazing. He also makes some super cool TF2 videos. Alright, thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.